the house. For the time together that is ours to share, I want to preach as the Spirit guides from these words. Jesus is in the house. Jesus is in the house. How do we respond to adversity and the difficult situations of life? The unexpected news from your boss that your services are no longer needed. The phone call late at night, the report from the medical lab, or the response from the credit agency that your application has been denied. None of us are immune to bad news and difficulties, but the secret is in the way that we respond to it. Every day, God sends us opportunities for spiritual growth disguised as problems. But the truth of the matter, my brothers and sisters, is that there are times in our lives when things happen that we just don't understand. And sometimes we feel like the harder we work at trying to fix a bad situation, the worse it becomes. Have you ever been there? We get discouraged when we see bad things happen to good people. But the key is for us to understand that the facts that we're facing are not always final. See, life is not always fair, but God is always faithful. Have I got a witness? We all need a little help along the way. And I'm so glad this morning that at the end of a bad experience, God can bring about miraculous good things. For I discovered that if you can just press your way into his presence, he has the power to touch, heal, deliver, and set free. Child of God, I want you to know that whenever you reach out to him, oh, he'll answer and put the broken pieces of your life back together. And I know I've got at least a few witnesses in the room this morning that can testify that Jesus can work a miracle in your life. Look at your neighbor and tell him he's still a miracle maker. The book of Mark is loaded with miracles. In fact, when you began to read the book of Mark after the introduction and the background information about Jesus and who he is, Mark immediately begins to record the great miracles that Jesus performed. In Mark chapter 1 and verse 23, Jesus casts out an unclean spirit. In 1 and 31, he heals Peter's mother-in-law. 1 and 34, he heals the sick and casts out demons in the evening. 1 and 42, he cleansed the leper. And 2 and 11, he healed the paralytic. And 3 and 5, he straightened the withered hand. And 4 and 39, he calmed the storm. In 5 and 8, he delivered the man from the demons and cast him into the swine. In 5 and 29, he healed the woman with the issue of blood. In 5 and 41, he raised Jairus' daughter. In 6 and 41, he fed the 5,000. In 6 and 48, he walked on water. In 7 and 29, he healed the woman's daughter. In 7 and 34, he heals a deaf mute. In 8 and 6, he feeds the 4,000. In 8 and 23, he heals a blind man at the pool of Bethesda. In 9 and 25, he delivers the boy who was cast in the fire and the water. In 10 and 52, Bartimaeus receives his sight. In 11 and 12, he curses the fig tree. Mark gives a full account of the miracles of Jesus. Yeah, but this morning, my brothers and sisters, I must suggest that far too often we allow the obstacles in our lives to become the barriers that keep us from seeing and becoming who God wants us to be. But the God that we serve is still looking for a few good men and women who are willing to go the extra mile and surpass the difficulties that are facing so many people today. As long as we will minister to the needs of people, we will never lack in fulfilling the calling of God to reach the lost at any cost. For the Bible declares, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And we know that all things work together for the good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. And if we're ever going to be the church that God has called us to be, we must be willing to reach the lost and make disciples for Jesus Christ. Have I got a witness this morning? Scene for our text this morning is in the town of Capernaum. A new preacher with an awesome power is in their town. And when the word spread the news that Jesus was in a certain house, the house was probably Peter's house, the people came from everywhere, overcrowding the house to capacity, and most of the crowd, I said most of the crowd, gathered to hear what Jesus had to say. In Luke's account of this story, Luke tells us that there were also some Pharisees, some doubters, some naysayers, and some haters in the house. Some haters in the house that were present from Judea, Galilee, and Jerusalem. They came to check out this new rabbi so that they could go back and report it to the Sanhedrins. And just like in this text, in many of the churches today, there are some Pharisees. There's some scribes. There's some doubters. There's some naysayers and haters in the house who only come to see what's going on, what the people are doing, what the people are saying, so they can go back and report it to somebody else. Oh, I know I'm right about it. The text tells us that so many people heard about Jesus that the house was full. In fact, so many people had gathered that no one else could get in. Look at them. Can't you see them? The people were everywhere. The house was packed. The people were pressed in and around the doors. They were pressed all around the windows. They were on the porch and all out in the yard. They were all straining to hear a word of hope and encouragement from Jesus. And the crowd was excited. And I don't know about you this morning, but I get excited when Jesus is in the house. I get excited because whenever Jesus shows up, something miraculous is bound to happen when Jesus is present. That's why whenever I come to church on Sunday morning, I need to let you know that I didn't come to see you. I didn't come to be conceited. I didn't come to gossip. I didn't come to talk about nobody. I didn't come to see whose socks not matching their shoes, whose purse is not matching their dress. I come to see Jesus and Jesus all by himself. I come to worship. I come to praise. I come to bless his holy name. Anybody in the house woke up this morning with your mind stayed on Jesus? Anybody really come to worship him this morning? In our text this morning, we find 4 men who had compassion and were willing to do the work necessary to get this man to Jesus. These men, the text does not tell us if they were his friends, whether they were his cousins, or no other form of relationship. The only thing that we see is that these 4 men decided that they were going to do something out of the ordinary that day. They were not only willing to do the work, they were also willing to go the distance. You see, some people will start the work with you and say they got your back. But if the truth be told, some will only go so far with you. As soon as someone does or says something they don't like, they want to quit on you. Others will work with you for a while, then they want to try to tell you how to do the work. You know the type, they only show up when they feel like it. They won't come to the ministry meetings, but they want to try to tell you how to run the ministry. They won't come to Bible study, but walk around misquoting scripture. Won't come to the church on a regular basis, but want to tell you what's wrong with the church. These same people will claim that they're tired and that they need a change, and will stop working with you only to go and do the same work that they claim they're so tired of for somebody else. Oh, I know I'm right about it. But God be praised that the church has still got some people that are willing to go the extra mile. As we look at the men in this text, they were in agreement with one another. And that's a word for someone. There ought to be unity in the house. In order for the body to function properly, there has to be a spirit of unity in the body. These men were in agreement with one another. And when they made it to the house was filled to capacity. It was overcrowded, but they did not get discouraged. The house was so packed that the people were pressed in and against one another. And yet these 4 men, church, decided to cooperate with each other. See, they didn't have a debate about who should be the leader or who should be the follower or who should be in the front or who should be in the back. No. Instead, they came to an agreement that it was not about them, but it was about this man. They decided to put their positions and titles aside and said, we're going to do whatever it takes to get this man to Jesus. Look at them. Did they actually think that they could squeeze this man that they were carrying through the door? For the Bible tells us that he was sick of the palsy. And that means that he was paralyzed and unable to get where he needed to go on his own. See, he needed help, and they knew that if they could just get him to Jesus, Jesus would do something for the man. Now, when you understand this text, Jesus had just left Capernaum a few days ago. He had made his way through Galilee and was now back in the city. And when the word spread about what Jesus had done in Capernaum, how he had cast out demons and healed Peter's mother-in-law, the people came from everywhere. And the people were excited. This same Jesus who had left just a few days ago had decided to come back into the city to do another miracle for somebody else who needed him that day. And I don't know who I'm talking to, but you came here this morning not because you have it all together, not because everything is going well in your life, but you came here this morning looking for the Lord to do something miraculous in your life. And I know I'm not the only one this morning that have trouble and tribulations around me. I know I'm not the only one that needs God to show up right now. I know I'm not the only one. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get Jesus' attention. See, I may not be where I want to be, but I'm a long way from where I used to be.